meeting. It's Monday, October 14th. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Opens Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Will you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on September 9th, 2024, approval of budget hearing and property tax hearing minutes September 9th, 2024, approval of minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting on September 26th, 2024, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for September 2024, approval of option students, and excuse the absence of Brandon Petrowski.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. First off, do we have a treasurer's report?
We do. So expenditures for the first month of the 24-25 budget cycle, September payroll was $1,843,602.91. Bills were $719,279.45, which brought total expenditures to $2,562,882.36. General fund revenue was $4,500,609.63. Being the first month of the budget cycle, we're in where we should be. Everything's in good shape, and that's the report.
All right, thank you, Jason. Are there any board members that would like to pull any items off the consent agenda for further discussion? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? All right, motion passes. Next up, outstanding recognition, Employee of the Month, Dr. Nielsen.
Wonderful. So good evening. I have the privilege of asking Mr. Hickey to come up here and help me with the Employee of the Month tonight. So he will come up and we will figure out who we are.
All right. Good night, everybody. I had to tell a little white lie to get Mrs. Dittbrenner up here. So Karen, please come over. Bring the things you brought, though. I told her she was going to talk to the board about some 3D printing that we do, which is not totally a lie. I'm not going to fight you. All right. So I'll read the nomination, and then she does have a little show and tell, which kind of goes along with the nomination. So we're thrilled to announce our Employee of the Month, Mrs. Karen Dittbrenner. The person nominating Mrs. Dittbrenner stated this: Karen volunteered time and the 3D printer to help us make eating utensils for a young girl who cannot move her arms the same as we do to eat. Her mom had noticed an idea on social media, and we tried to invent it with a mouth stick and utensils. We tried the contraption with a built-up plate, however the glue did not hold. Then her teacher and I reached out to Karen with our idea. She helped make a prototype with a 3D printer and used magnets to connect the device rather than glue. This worked much better. Karen was wonderful and came through with an idea to make an eating system which usually costs about $5,000. She's amazing and should be recognized for doing extra to help all the students in Beatrice. Karen is also a large contributing factor to the success of our 8th grade students at BMS. 2 years ago, we asked if she would put on another hat, to which she graciously agreed. She is our 8th grade lifeguard. This means that Karen checks in with every student with missing assignments daily and asks what their plan is to complete the assignments. If students are in need of an intervention to complete these, she will assign them. Media specialists can be a difficult role to define, from being our school liaison to troubleshoot technology issues, maintaining book orders to be compliant with Rule 10, checking out technology for families that need it, to using our technology to make a child's quality of life better, and keeping our students caught up academically. Karen does it seamlessly and should be recognized for it. So please help us congratulate this month's Employee of the Month, Karen Dittbrenner. And I, while this is here, I do not know exactly how it works, but there is a 3D model that we use some of our funds that you guys obviously approve with our technology and use it for one of our elementary students, so.
So first of all, I have to say that this idea came from an outstanding preschool teacher who said, we've looked into this, this is just too much money and we think you can help us. And so my brain doesn't always work that way, so I went home and asked my husband if he had any ideas, and we did some research, and they are very, very expensive and weren't exactly what we were looking for. So the whole idea came as a teamwork issue. So really, that started with Jenny Montag. So that's who got the ball rolling, and then we worked with Corey, the PT, OT person. And so basically what happens here is we Velcro it to the table, so that's pretty crude on my part, but we wanted it to be able to move from kid to kid and take it off so that she could more easily eat and then use her table for other things. So we Velcro it there. This is, it's got a magnet inside there. The magnet holds the spoon on, and then we have a mouthpiece that we purchased because the filament that we use is not something that we want to keep putting in our mouth and taking back out, because it does, 3D printing is porous and we don't want germs to grow there, so we purchased that from a medical facility. Attaches on the end. She can bite that little plate, it's specifically designed for her, come over to the bowl, put it in the bowl and set it back on here, and then she can use her fingers well enough to spin it and take a bite off. And so we have spoons and forks, and she kind of has taken off with it. And what it was is it freed up the preschool teacher to be able to reach more kids and not just sit with her all the time, and it made her independent so she can eat like the other kids. So it's pretty exciting.
Aaron, I've got a
Congratulations. We need a picture. Sorry for tricking you.
I'm not going to trust you anymore. Way too many papers, so I should have thought something.
All right, congratulations, Karen. Next up is our business friend of the month, Mr. Alexander.
Can you guys come up, please? Eric, you want to get in there? Okay. Well, as you know, we have started recognizing, come on up. We have started recognizing businesses that also support our schools. And there are so many wonderful businesses that do that. We just decided it's good to have a business come in once a month that has been either supported us financially or donated labor or help or whatever it is. Maybe it's just, sometimes it's just some food for staff, some popcorn or whatever. We appreciate all that. But tonight we recognize a local business that's helped us tremendously in the past years, but most importantly in the past several months with the new elementary school project. Mead Lumber has consistently been there when we needed sponsorships for a variety of events. Mead Lumber is on almost every camp t-shirt. They help us with providing things for kids every day and their needs, and events from youth to high school in our community. So they're a consistent supporter of our students and of the kids, the youth in Beatrice. So we are very appreciative for what they do. In the past 2 years, as we've been working on the new elementary school, oftentimes it takes a lot of big equipment to build a building, as we all know, right? And a lot of times we'd have shipments show up on truck trailers or whatever it might be, and the school didn't have the right equipment to get that big piece of whatever it is off the trailer onto the ground where it needed to be. And I don't know how many times for sure, but I know it was a lot. Rhonda would call and say, Eric, Chad, can you guys help us? And instantly they would drop everything, come out to the school with whatever piece of equipment we needed, whether it was a forklift or I don't even know what some of these things are, and help us unload. And That right there is a testament to a community working together. It's a testament to a business supporting their school, and we have a lot of them here, and Mead Lumber has been there every time that phone has rang in the last 2 years to help us. So we greatly appreciate that, and we greatly appreciate their support. A small list of the items that Mead Lumber provided when we called included they donated the grapple free of charge to load or brush pile into the dump trailer. They donated the jackhammer for removal of our playground equipment so our custodians could chip off the concrete. They donated 2 trailers for moving the elementary schools, which, folks, was unbelievably important. We were able to move, not have to worry about weather because we had 2 extra enclosed trailers, and we could plan the days that we were going to move and get a lot of equipment in there and move it, and that was so tremendously helpful. Even with the flat tire, it was great. So, lastly, they donated the Moffett, which I don't even know what that is, and an employee, I'm sure one of these guys up here was the one that ran it, and his time to operate the Moffett to help us with the playground surface for the new Project Fit America equipment. That's a playground, and 2,000-pound bags of surfacing had to be lifted into the air and cut from the bottom so the surfacing could drop into where it's supposed to. So that was a tremendously appreciated gesture on Mead Lumber's part, just because we couldn't have done it with any of the equipment we had. And we would have been lost, and those bags would probably still be sitting out there until we could get a crane here. So I think the most important part of this Business Friend of the Month is that it's truly been about a business stepping up to help and support their local school, not just financially. So much of the time we call and ask businesses for money, but this has been about a partnership, it's been about a friendship, it's been about supporting their kids that are in our schools, our kids that are in the schools, and helping us get the job done that needed to get done. So we appreciate them not only being school supporters, but good community members as well, and helping all of us. So tonight, we thank you, Mead Lumber, for all your help and support. We have a plaque for you. So we have a plaque for you guys to display at your business. And we'll take a picture. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mead Lumber. Next up, information portion. We will start with a student update. Annie.
Okay, the elementary school and preschool. Beatrice Elementary has been very, very busy this past month. They've entered their 3rd traffic pattern, which will be their final way of pickup and drop off. They say before Halloween they will have access to all the streets and driveways, and they are super excited. They are also very thankful for the hard work of the PK through 5 staff and parents for sticking with them through the changes. Friday night, the preschool had their annual tailgate at the House of Orange. It was fun to see the students interact with each other outside of school and start their school spirit at a young age. They had several grade levels go on field trips to the fire stations, water days, pumpkin patch, and the Philly barn. In the building, they are working on positive choices. They are working to spell the word compliment in each room. When classrooms spell this word, the whole class gets to go on the slide. They are also awarding the Golden Spatula to students who show great behavior in the lunchroom. The students are also working on positive office referrals. It is so fun for Miss Missy and Mr. Ford to call home and tell parents how awesome their students are doing. They've also really enjoyed having different groups come to welcome their students on Fridays for High Five Friday. So far, they've had the softball team, volleyball team, football juniors and seniors, tennis team, cheer and dance, and the Beatrice Fire Department welcomed them all into the school. And for the middle school, Officer Brow has begun her tenure at BMS and has done a fantastic job so far. BMS Cross Country finished 2nd at the Trailblazer Cross Country meet with Lillian Rios and Carter Ribble taking home 1st place individually. The high school has also had a very, very busy month and will continue to be busy through the next month. The high school hosted a BMX group that came in with the Marines. They promoted anti-bullying, and a biker even did a flip over Principal Voigt's head. A football player named Brian Freeman, who became blind in middle school but continued his football career in high school, also visited the high school and gave a message to the student body about facing adversity and having perseverance. Aubrey Simmons qualified individually for the state golf tournament and is currently competing in Scottsbluff. This past weekend, the softball team defeated Elkhorn North to qualify for the state tournament, and they'll play Gretna East in their opening game Wednesday morning in Hastings. District cross country occurs this week, and the state meet will follow it the next week. The marching band competed at Kansas State and received a superior rating and an almost perfect score. The musical Once Upon a Mattress was a great success, and the one-act play has kicked off. Homecoming was also a great success, and it could not have been possible without the help from the entirety of the student body and the staff, but most importantly, the leadership class and the student council. And lastly, this past week, the ICU list has begun and the Freedom Friday occurred.
All right, thank you, Amy. Next up, board reports. We'll start with the stance report. Jason.
So far, Stance has not met. Our first meeting is November, I believe it's the first week in November, I want to say the 6th or 7th. So at this point, really no report other than waiting for the first meeting to happen.
Okay, thank you. Next up, committee of the whole. Doris.
The Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting was held on Thursday, September 26, 2024. At the meeting, Dr. Nielsen shared that the BHS Science Department is proposing a minor revision to the science requirements. The athletic director, Gus Brown, provided an update on the current implementation of the random drug testing policy. He also spoke to the board regarding the need to upgrade the turf for the House of Orange. And the 2024-2025 activities calendar was discussed. Also on the agenda, Mr. Alexander talked about the emergency response mapping system. And to conclude the meeting, Mr. Alexander shared that the starter preschool auctions had been completed and that there would be an auction at Lincoln. He shared some of the auction proceeds will be used to help purchase a new skid loader for use around the district, and more specifically, snow removal. That ends my report.
Okay, thanks, Doris. Now's the time for public forum comments. Seeing that we did not receive any requests, we will move on to the discussion portion. First up, software mapping, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so as you know, we talked about the software critical emergency response mapping and the policy related to that and all the things involved at the committee of the whole meeting. There were some questions that we had coming back, and I just decided that it would be good to invite CRG to come. And so tonight we have Zach, who has come all the way from Pennsylvania to share with us what critical response group does, what kind of maps they provide, and how they're stored. So I'll turn it over to Zach. Thank you for coming, Zach.
Absolutely.
And then at the end of his presentation, if there's questions that you have, please feel free to ask them.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time, and thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it. As mentioned, my name is Zach Cleary. I'm the regional director for Nebraska at an organization called Critical Response Group. A little bit about me and my background. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. After finishing school, I was fortunate enough to serve 11 years in Army Special Operations. And then after my last deployment, unfortunately had some injuries pop up that forced a medical retirement. So moved back to the region to raise my family. I have 3 young kids, and as they approach school age, I questioned if there was anything that I could pull from my 7 deployments across Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria that I could use to create a safer environment for schools. So what I did is I teamed up with other military special operations veterans, and we investigated the problem set. And what we found is universally across the nation, we found that schools have some sort of emergency plan in place, but the issue with them is there's a set of blueprints inside that are not accurate and they're not accessible to public safety in the capacity they needed to be if there was ever a real-world critical incident. So while we were deployed, we were introduced to a mapping technique that fit the exact problem set that we were seeing here domestically, and we brought it home and rolled it out. So CRG is built backwards. We are probably the least traditional business people that you'll ever meet in your life, but the first half of us all come out of military special operations that have used these maps on countless of real-world operations around the globe. And then the second half is all retired public safety, because we wanted to ensure that our maps fit into the domestic environment and then the need of the public safety, and they were the true experts when it came to real-world critical incident response. So together we took all of our lessons learned and rolled out a mapping solution to address the problem set. So since we started this, we've done over 15,000 schools across the nation, We had no intention of starting a business. We started with my buddy's wife's school as just to fix her school in New Jersey. Turned in from her school to the entire district, to the county, to the state. Became a state law in New Jersey. We've since done every school in the states. We've done every school in Delaware, Virginia, most of Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, Texas, and it's turned into 20 statewide legislative efforts that have occurred. And then Nebraska took the legislation standards that they've saw based on our best practices and put it into place here in the state and provided funding for it. We start with K through 12 schools for moral and ethical reasons. However, we've done everything from the Super Bowl to the Indy 500. Really doesn't matter anywhere a critical incident could occur as a potential partner of ours. To give you guys a very brief overview of where this technique comes from, it started around the 2006 timeframe when teams like mine were tasked overseas with increasing the number of missions that we were doing in unknown locations. It all was based on our inability to communicate in these positions that we found ourselves in. So every night we were asked to go to a location like you see on the screen there. We'd never been there before. We were under immense amount of stress, and we were partnering with people that we rarely or never worked with before. So very similar to what you would see from a multi-municipal response from public safety. So our problem wasn't necessarily how do I navigate a monstrous high school, it was how do I communicate to another unit that I've never worked with before about the building circled in red on the screen. To solve that problem, we developed something called a gridded reference graphic, or a GRG. Very simple concept. All it was a satellite image of the area. We oriented it to the north. We would then label key features on the map, like buildings and intersections. And then to make it extremely simple and we couldn't mess it up, they put a simple childhood game of Battleship on top of it. So you had letters across the top, you had numbers down the side. If I asked you guys to go to grid square D4, you would just come over here and find D, come down here and find 4, and you'd see building 11. So super simple technique, but it wasn't just the simplicity that made this so effective. It was the fact that every single unit on the ground had the same exact map, and we were all streamlined in our communications. In 2008, this technique became mandatory. In 2011, it was ultimately the technique utilized during the mission for Osama bin Laden. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think it validates the technique. If you think of all the money, technology, and resources that are allocated to an operation like this, you still see a very simple paper map sitting in front of Secretary Clinton, and then the same one on the quarterback sleeve of one of our friends who was on the operation that night. For us, this was step one fundamental to everything that we would do overseas, and it was known to be best practice. But when we came home, we were shocked to see that nobody was using it, and this was the current state of emergency plans really across the nation. And I'm not here to critique those big binders. There's a lot of great information there, a lot of hard work goes into them. But what I am saying is, if you open those up and look at the blueprints inside of them, they do face two big challenges. They are not accurate, and they're not accessible to public safety. So what we wanted to do was pull those out. We wanted to fix them through a proven technique to better posture building owners and better posture public safety to communicate during a critical incident. Everything that we do is based on real-world after-action reports and lessons learned from previous incidents. These were two national level tragedies that occurred, and it's extremely unfortunate they happened, but it is important to take a second to look at them to understand how we can better be prepared in the future. When we look at Uvalde, for example, an excerpt from that after action was the schematic maps of the campus design used by law enforcement to identify potential points of entry were inaccurate. They built their plan based on 2 doors on a blueprint that no longer existed, which adds time to those critical moments, which unfortunately we don't have time during an event like that. When you look at the Sandy Hook event that occurred, neither floor plans nor schematics of the school were readily available for the tactical team search units. So even if they did have good maps, nobody had access to them, so they were going in blind. So those are the 2 things that we need to fix. First, I'll explain how we fix accuracy. It's really through a 3-phase approach. The first thing that we need to address is orientation. If you look at any standard map that public safety uses, or any standard map that really anybody uses, it's oriented to what's called true north. And all that means is north is facing towards the top of the paper. You can relate to that by opening up Apple Maps or Google Maps on your phone. Everything's always set to the north. But if you look at this gold star on top of this single-story elementary school, and then look at the blueprints that they have on file, you'll see that those stars don't align. And that's because blueprints are oriented in what's called Plan North or Project North, which is an arbitrary cardinal direction. So if you look across the state of Nebraska right now, every single floor plan is rotated in a different direction. So when public safety picks those up, it leads to absolute confusion on trying to figure out where they are. The second thing that we need to address is the accuracy problem. On average, schools are plus or minus 50 years old across the nation. That's 50 years of changes, renovations, updates, and additions. We've mapped over 15,000 schools across the nation, and we've yet to find a single floor plan that has matched the building. We've had to change every single one of them. And then the last thing we need to address is labeling and nomenclature. If a teacher were to call 911 and say, one of my kids is having a seizure in the media center, and you were given this piece of paper, where's the media center? Nobody would have a clue. So those are 3 things that we kind of want to fix. And I'll show you a quick animation on how we solve that problem. What we do is we take the old floor plans and we cut them out. From there, we're going to rotate them to true north and overlay them on top of an up-to-date satellite image. Once that's complete, we physically go on site into every single building and walk through with engineering software, and we fix that base schematic to make it 100% accurate. Once that's done, we then get eyes on every single label in the building. Is it classroom 10, or is it the art room? Is it door 1, or is it door A? Just as important is the surrounding area. Is it the north parking lot, the student parking lot, the teacher parking lot 1? How would somebody refer to that when they call 911? We want to ensure that those labels match to ensure that everybody's on the same sheet of music. Once that's done, we go through the building, we find your AEDs, your fire alarm control panels, your utility shutoffs, trauma kits, rooftop access, all of the things that public safety care about, and then we overlay it on top of this simple map. And then once it's done, we put a simple game of Battleship on top of it, because it doesn't matter if you're a school administrator or a public safety official, anybody can play a simple game of Battleship. At the end, you get what we call a collaborative response graphic, and I don't know why my slide's not changing here. Who hit next on the keyboard there?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know why it's not going for me. There we go.
There you go. Perfect.
At the end, you get what we call a collaborative response graphic, or a CRG. So if we had that same scenario of a kid who maybe was having a seizure in the media center, we could simply say, park your vehicle in grid square J3 by playing a game of Battleship, walk down the sidewalk through door D, get on the black hallway, and make your first right into the media center. It's clear and concise communication. It's the fastest route to the incident. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Brielle Elementary School in New Jersey, but with no training, I can put you through a very specific door into a very specific room in an unknown location. That's the problem set that we're trying to solve. So every map that we make comes with 2 products, a micro map and a macro map. The micro on the left depicts everything that we just talked about. The only other thing I'll highlight here is every single floor in each of your schools will get one of these maps. So first floor, second floor, etc. On the right, this is our macro map. This is critical for public safety because regardless of where an emergency happens in a building, the response from public safety will always begin and end on the outside, so they need a way to communicate on the exterior. How are they shutting down their ingress and egress routes? Where are they setting up their staging areas? We see a lot of times schools will overlay their reunification and evacuation plans on top of this, so they have a visual depiction of what that actually looks like, and everybody's on the same page by just picking up one sheet of paper. So what we want to do is we want to go floor by floor, building by building, and collect all the raw data in this district. We want to fix it through our process, and we now have an accurate map. But again, an accurate map is useless unless the right people who need it have access to it. So what we do at the end of our process is we bring to the table 911, local, county, state assets, federal agencies if they're in the area. We bring SWAT teams, fire, EMS, and then we figure out what technology vendors that they're already using. So the one thing I'll highlight here is we're not a software around an application. We simply build these maps and put them into the systems that first responders and schools are using every single day, and they're not tied to a vendor for these maps. So what we do when we go through our process, we start with the 911 call center. Our maps are not just dumb PDF maps, they're embedded with location data into every pixel of color. So when I put this into the 911 call center through the systems that they're already using, and I use this one specifically because this is what Nebraska has and we've already integrated with other districts, but they have the ability, if a call comes through, to actually locate where that call is coming from. It'll show 911 exactly where it's coming from internal to the building on top of our maps. And then they can push that to the local county and state assets through the tech that they already have. So these will get uploaded into the laptops inside police vehicles, inside their dispatch system, and then any other technology that they would rely on for an emergency like this. The next thing we do is we put these into first responders' mobile applications so they have access to them on their phones. And then at the schools, if you guys have any security systems in place, we can put these inside of there. So if you have panic buttons, video management systems, gunshot detection devices, or anything like that, our maps can integrate inside of those, and you'll have all that functionality on top of an up-to-date, accurate map. So we do this through a very robust partnership network. We have over 100 technology partners. Our maps live natively in all of the things that 911 currently uses to date. The state of Nebraska uses something called Rapid SOS, which is one of our best partners that we have. In the school space, any panic buttons or any other key technology that you guys would have, our maps will live natively in those systems. And then all of the first responder technologies that they're utilizing every single day, our maps will live natively there through our partners. The last way we make these accessible is through paper maps. So sorry to skip the slide there, but is paper maps. So you don't need to rely on Wi-Fi or data to access them. You can print them out. They can be laminated, pre-staged in the principal's office, behind defibrillators, inside police cars. They're ready to go. I always carried a paper map on me overseas. Technology's failed me in the worst of times, so having the ability to pull that out when all else fails, it's there, and we can all still communicate regardless of what technology people are using. So I will pause there for our process and kind of who we are to answer any questions, but if it's okay with you guys, I'd also like to talk the Nebraska grant and how we can kind of help you guys out with that. We've taken the slack out of pretty much everything for you guys ahead of time, but I'll pause there for any questions.
How do you maintain the information? So if something changes, how does it get in there?
Yep, absolutely. So the way that we do it is if you guys have any updates within those first 12 months of the mapping project being complete, whether a conference room becomes a classroom or you guys have a full-blown renovation, we'll make those updates. But more importantly, what we do is we handle the version control of public safety. So we will recall all of those old maps back to public safety, and then we push out the new ones to ensure that everybody's operating on the most up-to-date stuff. Year 2 and on, we do have an optional, we're generally not a subscription-based company, and we don't have like licensing agreements. You guys own the data, we don't take that stuff back. However, if you guys wanted to, you can keep us on retainer. It's like $500 a year to do so, and it's unlimited updates and unlimited version control to the public safety. So you guys just reach out to us, we'll make those changes, and then make sure the public safety is operating on the most up-to-date stuff, sir.
Okay, so you do not maintain a data center or your own database or anything. Everything is with the first responders who are relevant to the...
Yes, sir. So twofold there. So yes, we do have a database for our organization. It's a AWS server. It's the same. It's a very secure server that Homeland Security, NSA, everybody is using that same cloud-based software. So very secure system where we maintain that data on our end, so we can have that ability to update it for you guys. But then once we push that out to you guys from there, you guys own that data and you guys control who gets access to those maps from the public safety realm.
Are you concerned at all about any type of hacking where this precious information could get out?
I am not. So we have not had any data breaches from our organization internally. Where you're going to run what we cannot control is what I should say is when we push these maps to the schools and public safety, it's up to the vulnerability of what the servers are that the schools and public safety are on. So if you guys are utilizing, say, an emergency management vendor, you guys put the maps inside that system, it's going to come down to the cybersecurity of that emergency management vendor that you guys would be utilizing, but you guys would own that data on your guys' system. So we would push it to you guys through a secure drive, and then we push it to the public safety. So the only way that people would have access to getting into that would be to hack into the school's stuff or to hack into the public safety stuff, which is unlikely, and we've yet to see that to date.
You mentioned the need of the public safety in your speech there. Do you think that we are in need of this here in Beatrice?
Well, sir, I think that it's better to be prepared and not need it than be caught without it.
Sure.
I think that something as simple as this is step one to any fundamental operations or security planning to be able to communicate. And also, it's more than just thinking about the worst case scenario that we're thinking in our minds right now of an active shooter event. These are used every day for medical emergencies, for children who break a leg on a playground, or a teacher who has some kind of respiratory or cardiac issues. We see them utilized in drills every day for tabletop exercises. Where they'll print them out real big and bring administrators of public safety to walk through what one of those responses would look like, to have that ability to put everybody on the same sheet of music, essentially. So, to answer your question, sir, I do think that everybody could use, up-to-date maps or a very simple technique that people can communicate off of.
So even the situation, if, say you're, fourth grade student, your teacher has an event and they can get a hold of a phone and dial 911, then the 911 operations center can ping to exactly where they're at, so then the EMS can go directly to that.
Absolutely. So yeah, those maps automatically pop up in the 911 call center when a call comes through. So once they locate where that call comes from, sir, the map, when they realize that it's at that area through Rapid SOS, the map automatically pops up and drops a pin on there. So if the teacher says, hey, I'm on the children's or the K through 5 playground and I have a kid with a broken leg, one, they'll see where that pin is located on that map, but also they'll see the label of that on the map as well, where that kindergarten K through 5 playground is, and all the public safety will be on the same page and know exactly where to go instead of meeting at the front door and running over there.
From your experience, how often is the system used?
Yes, sir. We see it used. We've seen it used hundreds, if not close to 1,000 times for everyday medical emergencies and training events. There has been a real-world event where our maps were utilized during that in Texas. I will say that it was not a 100% success because people did lose their lives. However, public safety did note that it did help speed up the efficiency of that response and communication during that event. So yeah, we do see it used all the time, whether it's training or whether it's medical emergencies, or now we've seen it in the worst case scenario, sir.
Who decides who these maps were pushed out to?
Ma'am, so we sit down with it's kind of a twofold approach there. So we sit down with the school to figure out who they want access to through their public safety partners that they work with. And then also the back half of our team is all retired public safety. So we will do some open source research on our own to figure out what entities would respond if there was a critical incident here. When you look at Uvalde, for example, there was over 20 agencies that showed up to that. Most of them never worked together before. It's everybody in all the surrounding areas that show up to one of those. So we kind of do the homework to figure out what that response would look like in all those mutual aid departments that would show up. However, the data is yours, so the school decides who has access to that data. So we can make those recommendations and push those maps out to everybody, but if you guys don't want them, certain agencies to have them for whatever reason, you guys own that decision.
Did you really come all the way from Pennsylvania just for us?
I did, sir, yes.
I guess I don't quite understand. I can understand why our local police department, the sheriff's department, the school, but how long does it take, how long would it take if there was an event here? How long would it take the police department to push those to those other agencies that are responding?
Well, the issue a lot of times, ma'am, is it comes down to a technology issue. So again, we're not an application or a software because of this exact kind of thing. But what we see is a lot of times what the county sheriff uses and what the local police uses and what state police use, they all use different technology, and a lot of times they don't talk. So what we do is ahead of time is sit down and figure out who those agencies are and put the maps into their pre-existing systems so they're ready to go and can pop up inside the laptops inside their vehicles. So they can, again, with the paper copies that we have that we recommend that people pre-stage in their vehicles, if somebody did show up and didn't have access to the maps from a technology standpoint, they can start handing out paper maps and still have everybody on the same page.
I think part of the question is for first responders, those are within a few minutes of the location where you really need to get this out very quickly. But if we have, say, State Patrol, whatever, Lincoln, Omaha, or further distant, that would take an hour or so to get down here. So if we're looking at time critical type things, how important is it to get the same connectivity to them? Or how much does this...
I understand your question, sir. And it's very important. So when you look at the worst case scenario of an active threat, although that initial response happens in minutes, there's hours and hours of events that happen after that from an incident command perspective. So if you think, yes, they go in there and they chase down the bad guy and they get him, there's still, all the medical triage that has to happen. SWAT teams have to clear the building, clear the buildings. There's, significant movements of moving, potential casualties out to hospitals to be able to communicate what that response looks like. And then additionally, on top of that, you're looking at, from a reunification standpoint, having the ability to kind of plan and communicate all the way through those aspects. A lot of these events they're multi-hour things. They're things that don't happen quickly. So ensuring that all those folks have access to them, so that incident commander who owns that scene and all these people are coming in from all over the place, they have the ability to streamline communications to Lincoln, Omaha, whoever, as they're coming in and start tasking people out, and there's not a lot of back and forth communication. What we see is through history of these critical events, 80% of radio transmissions of a critical event is confusion about location. Hey, where are you? How do I get to you? And those are the big things that we see across the nation as we take a look at these kind of responses. So that's what we're trying to clean up.
And so for communication to work, we're talking a couple different kinds of communication. One of it is the visual, the mapping. The other part is how people are actually talking back
Right.
and forth. The communication links, that seems to be a slightly different thing. So when you have these organizations, first responders, giving them the map information, they're still going to need to talk to each other through pre-established.
Absolutely, yeah, communications plans, and public safety does have a pretty good job from a radio perspective to communicate, so that is something that gets hashed out. One of the things that offer as well, and something that we do at no cost, is free tabletop exercises. We took a rehearsal concept that we utilized for countless operations overseas, and we could do the same thing with your guys' district as well. We print those maps out real big, we bring everybody in, and we start from the very beginning, from actions at the school, all the way through reunification. And a lot of the stuff that gets ironed out is the small things that get overlooked, like things that you're considering right now, sir, where we get all the public safety entities that would be a part of that talking to fix those things ahead of time. The first time that we are finding out about these problems shouldn't be during the actual event. So that is something that we try to get ahead of, sir.
Really appreciate the comprehensive view of this.
No, absolutely, sir. Yes, sir.
Are rooms identified by number or by the teacher in the room?
It's identified by however you guys have it labeled, ma'am. A lot of times we see, most of the time it is numbers, and the reason we do that is, if there's a substitute teacher in that day, every single school year, teachers move around. We see that all the time. So what we want to match it is where if a public safety officer who's never been to that building before walks to a door that's labeled door D, that door matches what's on the map. When he walks in the hallway and sees classroom 315, it's the same 315 that he's looking at on the map, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I guess what my main concern is the fact that all this precious information is stored online. It's got to be whether it's going from one location to another location, it could be accessed. And you know just as well as I do that our enemy is very smart. Our enemy is not a country in uniform anymore. Our enemy's, everywhere on our homeland, and it's in every country now. And our enemy is smart and patient, and they know how to hack things. And I would hate for this to be out there as a tool for our enemy to use. And our enemies are cowards, and they know what hits us the most. And they would use this on our soft targets. They would attack our schools and our businesses. I just think this is a lot of information that could be out there that could be used for an evil purpose. I saw your blueprints, and thank you for your service. I counted 20, 30 buildings there in those villages. We have 3. And I mentioned the need of the public safety. I trust our fire and our police and our local EMTs that will respond within minutes. And I'm just trying to think of a situation like Chuck pointed out where anyone besides local would need that information to get in there. And how have we made it this long without this? Is really my question, my concern, that why give the enemy a tool at all out there if what we have right now is working? Because I know all these guys locally, they have wives, they have kids, they have best friends, they have people in these buildings. And what are we doing in our fire drills, our active shooter drills? Are they walking through the building? I know some of these guys, they know every square inch of these buildings. So I'm just trying to think, is this something that we really do need here in Beatrice?
What I would offer to that, sir, and that you make some good points. What I will say is, a lot of times when guys get under stress, under the worst case scenario, they don't know how they're going to react in that situation. Something to streamline communication during that is going to be absolutely essential, especially when you look at how many agencies typically respond to one of those. When it comes to a security perspective, like I mentioned, we're utilizing the same way of storing these maps as the Homeland Security, the NSA, all these other folks who handle extremely sensitive information for our nation's security. We are handling it with the same approach from our end as well. So like I mentioned, we've never had a data breach or never had an access or anything like that happen to us. As it stands today, I would assume that your public safety probably has some sort of blueprints on file for the buildings that are here, which would give those enemies the same capability of hacking in and still getting what those floor plans look like. It's like one of those, as we look at this from a most likely course of action kind of standpoint, I don't think that it's necessary. I understand your concern, sir. I'm just saying that I don't think we've ever seen that happen to us, and I don't think it's likely.
How long have you been implementing this?
Since 2016, sir, and it's led to, we're in 38 states to date, and like I said, it's over 20 states have taken this and made it legislative efforts like they have here in Nebraska as well.
Any one local or in this area?
So we've mapped ESU 3, the headquarters building there. We've mapped the ESU 7 headquarters building, and we've done a handful of private schools so far. We just started the efforts here in Nebraska, and up at ESU 3, we are fully implemented with the Nebraska State Police, the SWAT teams, the 911 call centers, Omaha PD, local police, and county sheriffs up there as well. So everything is up and running fully up there. And I would love to, if it would put your mind at ease, sir, if there's professionals in that field that I could, from the public safety side here in Nebraska, because I am, like I said, I'm not here, and I don't work in those specific agencies, but I'd love to put you in contact with any of those folks that would be able to talk through kind of how they're securing it on their end as well from their databases. I know what we have is locked tight, but to put your mind at ease from the Nebraska State Police, I'd love to introduce you to those folks and the folks that we've already worked with here in the state as well, sir, if it would help kind of ease your mind.
Thank you.
Appear to be a real risk-benefit. You got to weigh that carefully. The level of detail when you map a building, things like windows and doors, windows in the walls, locking of the doors, the status of the doors.
So generally, the standard detail that you'll see on our maps is you're going to see what they're labeled, so they have that ability. Whatever they're going to see with their eyes, they'll be labeled there. For the doors, you'll see which direction they open up. We don't go into specifically how they lock and all that other stuff, just because a lot of times what you'll see on those maps is they'll get very cluttered extremely quickly.
Yeah.
What you want is the baseline ability to communicate off of that map with the public safety between agencies. So we put the baseline stuff as recommended by our public safety partners to ensure that they have the information that they need for one of those incidents. So nothing that we made up. This is something that's been consulted with public safety. We're partnered with, I think, 26 police chief agencies across the nation, and we've been recognized as best practice from all of these police chief agencies because we use them to help us kind of build out the standard of what they need specifically for them. So we do have that great relationship with the Nebraska State Police here as well, who has kind of taken this on too. So I don't know if that answers your question completely, sir, but that's kind of how we approached it.
Did you know something, go ahead, because it was out of my mind.
I just don't understand. I'm comfortable with the information going to the local. I don't understand why we have to push it out to so many different agencies. And I know you said, well, they don't have the same software and that, but I just think, and then when you said, oh, and they keep maps in their cars and all of that, I'm just like, how many of these are there? I mean, I'm comfortable with our local people having it, but I do not understand the need to push it to, the Omaha. I don't.
Realistic standpoint of here. So again, if we look at Uvalde or Sandy Hook or any of these other incidents that occurred, you have numerous agencies that show up to these things. So however, you guys control the data. So if you guys don't want Omaha and Lincoln to have it, we don't need to disseminate it to them. We can give it to your local law enforcement and fire and EMS, and we can stop it there. We would recommend having paper maps pre-staged for those agencies that do show up, though, because when they do show up, if you don't want them living in their databases, they still need the ability to be on the same sheet of music as everybody else for that response. So handing them out maps when they show up is going to put them in the same sheet of music as the people that have already been on the scene.
So that is a negotiable type thing, but beyond just how we choose to do that, we get some benefit, some monies, funds to help do this. There's, at what level, what does the state demand?
So there's nothing in the legislation that mandates who. It says it needs to be shared with your first responders. It must be compatible with the systems that the local, county, and state uses, but there's nothing in there that dictates who you guys give it to. Again, you guys are the data owner. You guys own the maps. If you guys don't want certain people to have them, you don't have to give it to them.
Okay.
And that's totally on you guys, sir.
And we still get the grants.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Something I would be interested in is what would our county and our city say, what is the benefit to doing this? The other thing, I think we have to remember, we're just assuming everything's going to happen at the school. But let's say a tornado came through and took out your communications system. You want somebody besides just your county and your city to have that information, because they may be down, and you probably would want NEMA or some state agency to also have it. But I remember when we had the tornado come through, and the auditorium got hit, and our communications was down.
That's why
And
data
so, I
centers
would
and
look at
such
that.
will have backups and oriented, so the same tornado is not likely to hit both
Yeah,
places.
because we don't know where they're going to be, where those first responders are going to be. So I would like to hear what the emergency management person from the county has to say. I'd like to hear what the city has to say. Would this be helpful?
Absolutely. We typically, generally how we approach this, Nebraska kind of took off much quicker than we anticipated with taking the standards and turning it into legislation. Our approach nationally is we get in and build relationships with public safety first. So all those emergency management agencies, 911, state police, and we get in with those police chief associations. And typically they make us a best practice and push it out. And then the police chiefs typically walk us into schools. Nebraska did it a little bit backwards and put this money out there very quickly, which is a good thing because it solves the problem quicker. However, our standard approach of having the public safety introduce this for us, we just didn't have the time to do that for how fast that the state moved on this. So if you guys would love, we would love to set up a brief and we would love to discuss this with your 911 call center. We'd love to discuss it with emergency management, state police. We kind of do already have that relationship. But anybody that you guys would like us to brief on this, we would love to do it, and generally we get overwhelmingly positive support.
Well, like I said, I think we have to remember that right now we're thinking of just disasters that happen in the school, but we have to also make sure that we have first responders to respond
Right.
to something.
Right.
And they may be coming from Lincoln.
Okay, any other questions for Zach?
No, that's excellent, I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate your presentation. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes, Zach, thank you so much for coming. You were such a better presentation than I was at the committee of the whole meeting. So greatly appreciate your expertise, your knowledge. Thank you for being here this evening.
No, thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
All right, next up. First reading of Regulation 5205, graduation requirements. Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, so as we look at what the current board policy states, we are looking at science and making an adjustment to the regulation for graduation requirements. Currently, our science states that students have to have 30 credit hours, including one of the following: integrated science, integrated biology, integrated bioscience, or the equivalent. The proposal that we are making is that it would be science, 30 credit hours, including 10 credits in physical science and 10 credits in life science. So why are we doing this? One of the things that we want to do is make a more well-rounded approach. What we have found when we are looking at student transcripts is that they are taking a lot of life science and not taking physical science. When we look at the standards that we follow with Nebraska state standards and the ACT standards, they have that physical science as part of them. So we are not necessarily meeting that part of the standards, and we want to make sure that our kids are exposed and continue to be exposed to all facets of science. At the middle school level, we have that covered, so we're fine, but it really is at the high school level that we want to see those pieces in place. One of the things that this does not do is it does not take that choice away. There's a lot of different courses that students will still have access to. There's a lot of different things that they can still, the pathways will still be there. So it will not take those pieces away, but it will continue to expose kids to all different aspects of science. So they will still have to take the 30 credit hours because that is in Rule 10. We have to have that, but we're now just saying you have to take 10 out of the physical science, 10 out of the life science, and then your last 10 can be your choice. So this is first reading, and we will look to approve it so that we will then, our current 8th graders will be the students that will have to meet this graduation requirement. Any questions?
Do you foresee this making any changes to the current teaching status curriculum in the high school?
No. Because currently we have all these courses in place.
It's just now a matter of mandating
Yeah.
that
Yep,
Annie takes 10 credit hours of.
exactly. And Annie maybe already has. I mean, that's the thing is some students have that there is a group of students that tend to focus on that more life science. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they miss out on those physical aspects.
Why do they do that?
Because I think if I'm going into maybe the medical profession, I might say I need more life science. However, chemistry is a nice class to take also for that, for the medical field too. So you might say, you know what, I'm just going to take my integrated bioscience, then I'm going to take my anatomy and physiology, and then I'm going to take, I know I'm forgetting some stuff. Mrs. Kaderis is in the audience, but yes. So I might,
They might take advanced biology
oh yeah.
as an option and just shy away from physical science. And if we want them to have all standards, we're supposed to ensure that all students are exposed to all standards. If they choose all life science classes, they will not be exposed to all of the state standards.
Does physics fall under the,
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
which every medical field also requires physics?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's part of the differentiation between the quantitative sciences and less quantitative.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Nielsen. All right, next up, action portion. All right, we will start with the approval of the Beatrice Education Association as the exclusive bargaining agent for the district's non-supervisorily certificated staff for the 26-27 contract year. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the Beatrice Education Association as the exclusive bargaining agent for the district's non-supervisory certificated staff for the 2026-27 contract year.
All right, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Jason, do you have any comments?
Just so very briefly, just a little background. It's typical that the bargaining team for the Beatrice Education Association requests to be recognized for coming years as we approach the negotiation season. Those of you that have been on the board for a number of years understand this. We are approved for this year and we are approved for next year, but in just keeping with that process and protocol, the BEA has asked to be recognized for 26-27, so that steps out of the way.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? All right, motion passes. All right, next up, approval of resolution in Appendix 1 to the option enrollment policy. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the resolution in Appendix 1 to the option enrollment policy 5006.
All right, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Jason.
So 2 years ago, the legislature revamped sections 55 through 57 of using LB 705 and updated the option enrollment statutes. Under these new laws, the district generally cannot declare its entire special education program to be at capacity. Instead, a district must review option applications from students with special education needs on a case-by-case basis. So that all changed a couple years ago. Another one of these updates now requires a board to adopt a resolution prior to October 15th to declare a program, a class, or a school unavailable to option students for the next school year due to lack of capacity. So we did this last year. It's something that we're now required to look at and do every year. And we've provided you with the resolution, and we've provided you with the capacity numbers that we see as what's proposed for the current school year. We'll continue to have to do this every year as long as this legislation is in place.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any questions? So do we need to read the resolution now?
We do not need to read the resolution since it's in front of you. We don't have to read the whole thing.
Okay. Any questions in regards to the resolution? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. Okay, next up, approval of a ballot selection for the NASB Legislation Committee member number 12. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 nominate Gary Kubicek as Legislation Committee member number 12.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Any comments?
Just Gary is from Norris. The credentials for both of the candidates that were nominated were sent out earlier in superintendent update, so you've had a chance to review them. I think Gary's a good nomination at this point. He's very involved on a legislative level, very involved on a state level and a local level. Brings a lot to the table, and he's very handy right here at Norris.
And I would comment that I've met with him and I fully approve, he's good.
Good, thank you. Any other comments?
I guess I have a question. Do we fill out the ballots or
I think there's just
as a
one.
board?
Yeah, just
One as a board, yep. Okay, seeing no other comments, can I have your votes please to nominate Gary Kubicek from Norris? And motion passes. All right, next up, approval of purchase of turf for the House of Orange. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the purchase of turf for the House of Orange for the price of $505,000.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, Mr. Alexander.
So as we talked about at the committee of the whole meeting, we secured bids from 5 different turf companies using a bid agency called Nemaha Sports. We met with Nemaha to cover the bids and look at the samples provided. I brought those. They left them here for us. They're over there for your review if you'd like to see them. And explain how we have narrowed it down to 2 for your consideration. And basically that was just through looking at that pricing sheet that you have, or the comparison sheet that you have attached to the back of the drawing. Kind of walks you through all the different aspects. One of the things that they emphasized, Nemaha emphasized, was how easy it was to pull or how easy it was not to pull the strands of turf from out of the binding. And so binding's a big part of it and how it's all interwoven. That's what led us to our decision to recommend the field turf, which is the second column. And basically, the companies doing the installation give us better rates at the end of the football season than they do in the summertime when they're stacked full of and busy. So if we approve this, our plan would be to move forward with it at the end of the football season, start getting the turf torn up and replacing the new turf because we get a better discounted rate at that point. I have spoken with 2 different organizations about financing options for this particular project because of the expense of it. It helps us to be able to pay it over 2 to 3 budget cycles. That way we don't spend all of the money in one budget cycle or use all of our budget authority, which is also a consideration that I have to take into account. So I have spoken to those 2 organizations and working with them to help with financing this over a 3-year budget cycle process. It does come with some interest payment, as it would, but it also comes with the option to pay it off if we have the funds to do that and the budget authority to do it at the end of the school year with no penalty. So there are options there for it. At this point, I'll just stop and answer any questions I can.
Is this for the green or the orange?
Well, I really thought the orange would be neat, but it's for the green.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but it's what?
There's an orange. Yeah, I was just kind of teasing Doris the other day, and I said I think we need a full orange football field. She didn't think that was going to happen. So.
Yeah, and I was just going to comment, as long as it's drought resistant.
It is drought resistant. That is very true. Yes.
What is the expected life expectancy for the field turf?
They tell you it's anywhere from 11 to 13 years, depending on circumstances and everything that base that your field sits on and how well constructed that is. We're very fortunate that that was done right the first time. So there may be some things that they have to touch up in the base, but the base of the field itself is in very good condition.
Well, and I think the other thing too is just exploring those potential finance options to spread this over 2 to 3 budget cycles, I think would be, important as well.
Agreed.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. All right, approval of policy 3241, emergency response mapping. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve policy 3241, emergency response mapping.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Charles. All right, Mr. Alexander.
So you've heard the presentation. Basically, this is the first step in moving the needle that direction. And I want to emphasize it's the first step because we can always stop in the middle if we want to, but we have to have the policy in place to apply for the grant. And the grant funds were not announced this summer. So when the grant funds became announced, that's when we decided to bring the policy to you. So approving the policy does not necessarily mean you're tied into it. We've got a quote that you have to apply for the grant. So now, if we approve the policy and we have the quote, we can apply for the grant and then determine next steps from that process if we're awarded the grant money.
Okay, so this is a legislative bill that we have to do this, is that correct? Or not?
It's a legislative bill that in order to be eligible for the grant funds that the state established, you have to adopt a policy.
But it's not being mandated that we have the mapping in place, correct?
Correct.
But if we were wanting to think some more about the actual purchase, could we vote no and then bring that back at a later date?
You would table it,
Table it, okay.
if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay, I will make a motion to table this. I'd like to get additional information from the county and the city on emergency management to see if the mapping is helpful.
So we would need a motion to amend the previous motion.
I make a motion to rescind what Doris said and
Perfect.
and then make a motion to table this policy until the November meeting.
Okay, I guess point of order, I'm not sure, do we need to table it to have that? Because my impression is that we can still talk to these additional people and we're not locked in.
That is true.
But I just don't see the point of then, if we would choose not to proceed, what would be the value of having a policy that we're not going to do anything with? If we're still not sure about the purchase, why would we?
I would agree with Doris. I think, and Janet, I think it would be important to get, it'd be nice to have, Beatrice Police Department, Fire Department, County, and then County Emergency Management, at least maybe come to whether it's a CAL meeting or a board meeting and just kind of present where they see the benefits, just so we can hear from them. I think it may also, now this may be a stretch, but the Nebraska State Patrol as well, because they're going to respond as well. So it's not just our local, but it's State Patrol.
We're
You
not.
put this in policy, it says we will provide.
Right.
I don't want to go, we will provide yet.
Yeah.
So I think if we table it for at least a month to see if we can get more information from them, I think that would be appropriate.
We're not in any hurry.
I'm just trying to picture what could they possibly tell us more than we already know that Zach shared with us. I mean, I understand the merit behind wanting to have them come speak to us. I'm just trying to, at the end of the day, we're making this decision. And do they have this in place? Is this something that they're encouraging us to put in place, or I'm not following why?
I would think they would have more information about how maybe it's worked or not worked other places. And one of the questions I just would like to hear, I feel like they're the experts, and they're the ones that would have to actually use this. I'd like to hear it from them.
I would agree with Doris.
I agree too. I just want to hear their input, and not only that, but, you know, we also pay Lang, you know, our former police chief, where he's still providing consulting services to us. I would want him there, I think, as well.
Well, and I think, you know, the other thing too, you know, nothing against Eric's comment to Zach as far as, you know, most of our, you know, policemen have been in, maybe done a drill, have kids in there, but still, I've been in every building, but yet I can't identify every single location that everything is, you know. So I think it's just maybe hearing from them, boots on the ground. Yes, we've done the drills, we've done the active shooter drills, but can you truly identify an exact location of an incident, whether it's a shooter, whether it's a medical emergency, or whatever that may be? You know, just kind of hearing from them on that.
Their input to me is more important than somebody standing up here wanting to sell me a
Yeah, I agree 100%.
If I feel comfortable after hearing their input that
This would be
this
good.
is under control, then I'm not gonna purchase your product, I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like them to also talk about it getting hacked. I think that's a real issue, and so how do they respond to that?
And I guess, I don't know, the
I don't
concern
know.
with that, we have these, you know, I would assume Jason, each building has these plans on their computer, so whether we're getting hacked or the police department's getting hacked, it's either way, you know, honestly.
Zach's description of what exists in most school building, or most public school districts is exactly what I would say. Ours is updated annually, so I feel very good about that. I feel very good about, we have one person dedicated to updating our maps annually and making sure everything is the way that it should be. However, the points that he makes about True North, the things that he says about specific locations, and being able to tell somebody how to respond on a grid format, battleship type situation, in a critical emergency situation, we wouldn't have that capacity with what we currently have. What we have is very good, and we work very hard at our security, safety and security team, our threat assessment team. We work very hard at making sure those things are updated and in place, but they are a red binder that everyone has, and we have available here, and our local officials have on site to be able to use them. The rest of the things are what we would not have.
Well, and I think what he was talking about, you know, on a day-to-day basis, the mapping is very good, but I think you have to think beyond, it's only happening in one building, or we're having one incident. Again, if you have a disaster that encompasses a lot of the community, then you have a whole different situation, and you have to make sure that you have good communication and good coordination between those agencies that you want to respond. And it could be from anywhere. You might be looking for help from anywhere because your emergency response is very divided across the community. You know, it's not like we have 200 people who can respond from the police department and fire department. And
So basically, the solution is not all comprehensive, it's not going to cover everything, and I have no problem, I think getting some more information, I'd go with the table, let's get more information.
We do.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this until at least the November board meeting. Do I have a second on that motion to table? Second by Lisa. All right, can I have your votes, please, to table the motion? All right, and we are tabled, motion passes. Okay, moving on. Approved purchase of equipment from CFM Distributors Incorporated. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the purchase of equipment from CFM Distributors Incorporated for repairs. No, that's not right. Is that it?
Yeah.
For repairs? Oh, at Beatrice Middle School.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Jason, do you have anything to add to this?
I do. So this item, 8.6 and 8.7, they go together. So I'm going to talk about both of them at the same time, and then that hopefully expedites the process of voting on them. In short, there's about $100,000 worth of HVAC repairs between the middle school, high school, and this building that need to happen. So it just comes down to coils being worn out, or compressors being worn out, or units just have failed altogether. So what we've tried to do is meet with Prairie Mechanical to target those and prioritize them. And this is the first unit that comes up on the priority list. It is at the middle school, and it serves a conference center and one other room. And basically it is stopped working altogether. The way that we've established our preventative maintenance program this year helps us tremendously from the standpoint that Prairie Mechanical is saving a bunch of money to do that, but then they're willing to let us purchase the equipment for any other necessary repairs directly from CFM manufacturing, and then they will provide a quote to install it. That's what these two items are about. So the first part is approving the purchase of the equipment, and it removes the middleman out of that, so we're just buying it directly from the dealer, and then they are installing it, which is what the next item.
What's the purchase price?
The 5,000, is that one up there?
Yeah.
5,778, is that right?
Yep, $5,778.
Okay, any other questions for Jason? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. All right, next up, approve install quote from Prairie Mechanical Corporation. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the install quote from Prairie Mechanical Corporation in the amount of $4,933.33.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. As Jason just discussed, this is part of the previous motion. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. All right, discuss, consider, and take action on the possible purchase and install of K through 5 playground equipment and surfacing. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the purchase and install of K5 playground equipment and surface from Creative Sites LLC.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so we have two sets of equipment that we've pulled up from Stoddard Elementary School and would like to install at the new elementary school. Along with that, we knew that we would possibly need to add some more playground equipment to what we installed over the summertime, but we've had to try and wait to see exactly how much that was going to be. At this point, we've been working with Creative Sites, who also installed part of our playground equipment on the K5 end over the summertime, to come up with a design. They've done that now, and also incorporate the equipment that we have, which in that gap you see up on the TV screen would be where that equipment would fit in. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like a miniature Ninja Warrior course. So we have some of that equipment. The equipment that we'd be adding would be $200,867. The installation is $113,350, which brings the total bill to $314,217. There is an optional sidewalk that would go between the existing equipment and the new equipment. It's a $7,200 option that you can tell me to do or not do, but it would hook onto the current sidewalk and allow handicap accessibility either side once the new equipment's installed.
Is the new equipment handicap?
Yes, there's 2 to 3 parts of it that are handicap, and the swings, they're called saucer swings, and the kids love them if you've been out to recess, because you can get 5 or 6 kids on them and swing back and forth, and so kids sit there, and it's kind of a new thing. But so those are handicap accessible, and then there's 2 chairs that we already have 1 chair, and this adds 2 more.
Doesn't it kind of make sense to put the sidewalk in so they can get there?
It does make sense. It's just an option I wanted, to, quite frankly, to run by you before we did it, so.
Okay, so would say I would put the sidewalk in. I don't know if we have to vote on that in addition, or if that's just part of this motion.
I would say that if you want to put it in there, we add it in there and make the purchase price $321,417. That will get the sidewalk in.
Do you need an amendment to that motion then? Did you?
No, because there was no dollar
You
figure.
didn't give a dollar figure.
No.
Okay, any other questions on the playground equipment? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. All right, next up is request for student enrollment. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 enter into executive session to discuss the request of a student to enroll to protect the confidentiality of student records.
Okay, we have a motion to move into executive session at 8:21 PM. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Do I have your votes, please? All right, we will move into executive session.
Okay, so at this time, we would have to ask everyone to leave the room.
And then we would like Ms. Hoekstra to please stay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, very intriguing. Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, I know. Well, me, but most people, I get what you're saying, yeah. I don't still, I don't know,
I mean, and I see what you're saying.
right, and that's a good point.
Lisa's got to come back, she'll get it. Thanks, Doug. Yeah. Thanks.
Just make sure that has Facebook Live on. Okay. All right, so